how to create more videos in less time. And we're actually going to be going through 10 productivity tips with two special guests. And really, there's going to probably be about 63 different tactical nuggets that you're going to learn. These are two of my favorite people in the world. They are part of our Video Reiki Academy. They've built their own influence and doing so many cool things on their own as well. And I can't wait for you to learn from them. Let's get into these tips, and I will kind of pass it back and forth. You both submitted some powerful insights of just what you've learned to get more done in less time, to be more productive. And we're going to start with Jacqueline. And tip number one here is use your passive time productively. And so, Jacqueline, you mentioned some of the things you do, whether from commuting or how you're getting video editing done. Break down some of the things you do with kids, with a busy schedule, to use your passive time productively.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you're like, I don't have time, I can 100% relate. When I started my channel, I was working most weeks 50 to 70 hours, and I commuted about 10 hours a week. I have 2 kids. One of them is special needs. Plus I have dogs and a husband, and I like to see them from time to time. And I worked a lot of hours. So I had to be really smart about what time I did have. And so I tried to figure out every little bit that I could use. So from things like, I was part of the VRA program. So when was I going to sit down and listen to all this training at home? Well, the answer was I wasn't. So I was going to listen to it while I drove to work. I might not be able to watch the video, but I could listen to it and the time that I had. I did little things like I kept a small notebook that could go in my back pocket. I worked in a huge factory. So as I had ideas, I would just write stuff down really quick. And so they even with my kids, if you have little kids, you know that especially when they're little, they watch the same episode of whatever together. For us, it was Bluey. We watched probably Bluey 100,000 times through. So I would edit while we would watch. So I'd still get cuddle time, but I wouldn't have to listen to the same episode again. So there was still quality time, but I used every single minute I could to think through, what do I have to get done? And how can I fit that in the schedule that I do have? Because I can't change the fact that I work so much and commute.
I love that. And Ben, I'd love to hear from you, especially taking us back to, you mentioned as this online YouTube media company growing a business thing grows, we do hire editors eventually or get help. But take us back to those early days when you were just getting started. And I loved, Jacqueline, that you mentioned turning your car into a college. I know, Ben, you and I share that similar vision.
Yeah.
To get down learning when you're busy, you were running a gym. What are just some of the things you did when you felt like you didn't have enough time to get it all done?
Well, number one, I committed to it. There's a big difference between being interested in something and being committed. I think it was Ken Blanchard who said, when you're interested in something, you do it when it's convenient, and then you give up when it gets tough. When you're committed, you do whatever it takes until you get results. So big difference between being interested and being committed. So I committed to it. And I knew that even though it might be slow growth in the beginning, there's no going back. I threw my hat over the fence. I'm going to have to go get that hat. So when there was slow growth, I all knew that it was all on the way, not in the way. There was no giving up, no quitting. And it's really impressive what Jacqueline shared, because she has a family and she has kids and she was juggling all that. I didn't have that same situation. I have my fiance and my dogs, but it's a different scenario. But at that time, Sean, I owned a CrossFit gym at that time, right? So I was thinking about, all right, I could serve my beautiful CrossFit community and I could, trade time for money, which was great and all, but I decided to actually leave my brick and mortar so I could go online and actually serve more people. And that's where I made the huge commitment. Yeah, I essentially jumped off the cliff and figured out how to fly along the way. And that's very different than if I would have stayed with my CrossFit gym, or for you all stayed with your job. And I'm not saying to quit your job, but what I'm saying is when you commit to something, you find a way. And in the beginning, that's what it was for me. So yes, it was a lot of work. When it's something that's worth chasing, I believe you got to put in a lot of bandwidth and energy in the beginning, and then you get really smart and you start to delegate. And for me, when that delegation started to happen, I had a big challenge, and I still have a big challenge, thinking that I do it the best. Nobody could do it as good as me. If I'm going to hire an editor, they're not going to know all the little things that I like, and I have to spend all this money, and I had all this thinking. But I knew that there was no way I was going to do it by myself. I would be working from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. and it would just be frustrating. So I just took that leap of faith, and it was one of the best decisions that I've made for my business.
I love it. Number 2 is use a calendar and create checklists. And so, Jacqueline, you mentioned, and then we'll go to Ben, about planning and lists. And
Yeah.
so why has this been so important when it comes to getting more done in less time and time management?
Yeah. I think, if you're a busy mom or dad, you know that it can really quickly get very overwhelming with all the different stuff you have to do, all the different angles. So I spent a lot of time making sure I thought through, what do I need to get done? And I kind of thought about it a little bit differently, and especially in the beginning as I was figuring stuff out. So instead of being like, I have to get a video done every week, I started to try to think, how can I do work on a video 4 hours a week? Like, can I create 4 hours of work? And then what can I get done in the 4 hours? And I'll get as far as I can on my checklist, because when you have kids, and a job that eats up way too much time, which is what I had, you only can do what you can do. And so having that mindset of like, let me go through my VRA checklist of, did I create my title? Did I do my research? Right. And then when am I going to go and film? And then when am I going to edit? But in the beginning, I didn't know how much time it was going to take. So it was more about, okay, I'm going to give myself 2 hours on Wednesday night, and I'll go down that list and I'll see how far I can get. And then, maybe I'll get it 2 hours on Saturday. I can sit and go far down, keep going down my list. But the good thing is that instead of becoming like, oh, well, I didn't get a video done this week, it was like, well, I used my time really effectively, and I kept moving through the list. And then over time, I got faster and faster at things, and I got smarter about how I use time. But that's how I used calendars and checklists. Was I thought more about time and the activity and how far can I get.
I love that. I heard it said that people who want to appear clever rely on memory, but people who want to get things done make lists. I don't know about you, but it always makes me nervous when the waiter or the server at a restaurant doesn't write things down. I'm always like, I'm not impressed. Like, I'm like, actually, I would prefer, especially when you've got modifications. And then, sure enough, especially there's 8 people at the table, they put their hands behind their back, and you're like, 2 orders end up getting messed up. I'm like, listen, if you can pull it off, good, because then I'm impressed. But it'd be just a lot better to write it down. It's better to have a short pencil than a long memory. And so lists are really a superpower. And Ben, I want to hear from you. Number 2 is use your calendar and create checklists. Is a calendar important for you to get everything done?
First of all, what you just shared was brilliant, Sean. Just dropping nuggets, bro. I love learning from you. Yeah, I live by my calendar. I really believe for myself that blank space on my calendar is the devil's playground. And it really starts with clearly defining my goals and then matching my calendar to those goals. That I don't have time for things that are not serving me. Another quote, Robert Heinlein said, "In the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it." So when I am clearly defining my goals and I have that on my calendar, daily trivia does not own me. I own my life. I own my actions. So I wake up, I look at my calendar, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing today. So when daily trivia tries to seep in, whether it's a friend asking me to go out and do something or whatever it is, I don't have time for that. And that is my goal matching to my calendar. And I just live by my calendar. And it's not just my business events that I put on my calendar. I put my workouts, I put, my date nights with my fiance, my trips, everything is on there. And as long as I follow that, I know that I'm happier, I'm healthier, I'm making a big difference in my life. So it's hugely important for me, because I have found that when there is blank space, daily trivia tends to creep up. And that's not a happy way for me to live. I don't make an impact that way, Sean. So yes, the calendar, I live by it, and it's huge for me.
So powerful. And so number 1 is use your passive time productively. Number 2 is use a calendar and create checklists. And then number 3 is turn 1 video into 4 videos. We have been touching on batch producing, but Jacqueline, break it down, how batch producing has worked for you and how you've ended up being able to be so prolific with a busy schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who don't come from the world of factories, they are very consuming. You work every holiday, every birthday, you get calls on weekends, you come in the middle of the night for all the time. So your schedule gets thrown off. So I always had to create a buffer and do batching. And one of the things using the VRA system that I started to do was I started, we talk about answering specific questions. And I found in the beginning, I kind of went a little bit more broad, and I see a lot of other YouTubers do that in the VRA community and outside of it. And what I started to do was really think through like answering a specific question, and then what are the other questions people will have, and how can I break that into 4 or 5 videos? So I've done it over and over again. I'm constantly doing it. So one of the things I did was I did a series of videos on one plant. And then I answered every question about that plant, but every question from how to prune it, how to propagate it, how to take care of it, how to identify it, things to look for when you're shopping. Every one of those became their own video. And what I found is that not only is batching helping with your time, but when you're doing a series of videos that are all on that one topic, it's really easy to film because you don't have to keep well, at least for me, I didn't have to keep shifting gears because it was just like, well, I'm just talking about this one plant. And I just had to pay attention to my intros and my outros, but I could really, really optimize what filming time I had and editing time, because then I was able to pull all the B-roll because it was all B-roll of the same plant. And I could basically knock out, 4 or 5 videos, maybe filming them in like 6 hours. And almost every one of those videos ranks, if not in the top 5, about half of them rank number 1.
Such powerful tips. And Ben, you've been doing this 1,500 videos. And so you've gone through different seasons of live streaming and videos, and now you're at a different level of scale and you're across multiple platforms. What are your thoughts though on just getting more done, especially for the time-starved person that's trying to keep an upload schedule going when they have minimal time? How would you approach that with minimal time to film, edit, and upload during the week?
Yeah, like Jacqueline shared, I think it's important to batch record, and you could do that once a month. You could just block out 4 hours, 5 hours, and knock out 4 or 5 videos, maybe even more, and find a flow that works for you. So to give you an example, in the beginning, right before I launched my Keto Camp YouTube channel, I had to figure out what's a good flow for me that I believe would work, meaning it's sustainable. And for me, that was 2 videos a week. A video posted Monday, a video posted Friday. Now for you, that might be 1 video per week or 1 video every other week, whatever that flow is. I believe it's important to stay consistent with that. When I saw the channel starting to really take off, I doubled that from 2 to 4, and then it kind of took off from there. But in the beginning, I was just batch recording once a month. I would block out half a day where I would, do my research ahead of time, learning the 7R system. If you're in the VRA program, you're going to learn that. And I wanted to own my space. Like Jacqueline's owning her space, and she has amazing videos. Like everybody in her space is following her. They find her on YouTube. She's ranking all these videos. I wanted to do the same thing for keto, and then eventually just in the entire health space. So I started to think about what are the most common questions. I did my searching. Now we have ChatGPT and all these cool things that help give us that, give those the data points to us. But I had a whole list that I compiled, and then I knew my stuff. I knew my information. So I put that tripod on, I hit record, and then I knocked it out, changed my t-shirt, maybe put on a different hat or took off the hat, knocked out a video. Now it's a little bit different because I'm a little bit more advanced and I have a lot of studies that I'm referencing. So sometimes I'll use, what is it called, Sean? Not a projector, but a
teleprompter.
A teleprompter. Sometimes I'll use that to cue me and what I want to talk about. But in the beginning, it was honestly a Apple Notes open with the bullet points, and I just hit record and batch recorded and got it done.
I love that. Yeah, and Apple Notes is great. I like to use Google Docs because once I'm logged into Google Docs on my computer, I also have the app on my phone. I can sit down with my phone and actually just, kind of use your phone as a prompt for, okay, this video, and then walk through everything. And I love what you're hearing from our guests too, is that there's different seasons to this. And so one of the biggest mistakes you can make is if you copied exactly what Ben was doing right now, but you didn't have Ben's team or Ben's situation or Ben's even the financial situation, it'd be the wrong thing to emulate. So it's like, you want to be applying the right strategies in the right season. And Jacqueline and Ben are proof that it's possible to do this in the side hustle season, when you're figuring things out, when you're juggling lots of stuff. So many people at VRA prove it is possible, but you got to see the opportunities in your schedule. You got to see that there's possibilities. We could look at our schedule as like it's an impossible situation. Well, then it will be, because if that's what you believe about it. But if you start saying, man, if I start scheduling, rethink about this, I can get this done. And so that brings us to number 4, which is keep your video editing simple at the start. And so Jacqueline, remind us again. So people were asking about video editing. What did you edit on? And do you edit on the same thing? Do you always edit? And when you do, what is your advice on this number 4 tip? Keep your video editing simple at the start.
So I 100% edit all my videos, even to this day. So in the beginning, still today, I shot completely on my iPhone. And because I was running into challenges, especially the first 2.5 years first 2 years of my channel, of having time to sit at a laptop and do work, I edited it on my phone with iMovie the first 2 years. I did everything on my phone, other than like the descriptions. So I kept it super, super simple. Jump cuts, a little bit of B-roll, a little bit of music, but no fancy. Even today, barely any fanciness. I would say I've only gotten to any sort of fanciness now, but jump cuts all day long, simple cuts. And honestly, look at other niches, or look at the niche you're in. Some niches don't care. I would say in the gardening, homesteading world, people don't need fancy stuff, nor are they really that interested in it. So I kept it super, super simple, and doing it on my phone for 2 years completely.
Yeah, this is inspiring, because again, this is, and you don't even have a microphone, correct?
No.
so you just have your phone. Do you have like a tripod?
I have a tripod.
Nice. So you can set up a tripod. Are you sitting here?
That one I'm sitting.
So you're sitting down, tripod up, you start delivering your info, you put this in iMovie. We're about to see a photo that you added to iMovie illustrating what you're talking about. This is very kind of, basic things as you walk through here, but it's your expertise. It's the thing you've been doing, growing bananas. This video has 112,000 views. Mm-hmm. Shot on an iPhone, edited simply. It's not really about the production value. It's about the content value. But I would even challenge, this is actually great production value. This is how good our smartphones are now. Looks sharp. It's 1080p. The phone picks it up, and people want the information, and you're able to deliver that outdoors. Man, it's just so powerful what's possible. And sometimes we just kind of have to bite the bullet and open up the software. One of the biggest things I see people say all the time is like, what's the perfect software? The one you actually use. Like, what software should I get started with? Like the one that's already on your phone. Like, just start. Use Filmora or Adobe or DaVinci or CapCut or iMovie. And I know that's overwhelming, but like literally just pick one, because you can always change. Kind of like Brian Tracy says, you just got to eat the frog. There's something about just starting, and then you can always make pivots along the way. But I'm curious,
Sean,
Ben,
can I give you a thing that I do that's really in that vein? So I know a lot of people, when it comes to thumbnails, are using like Canva or Photoshop. I don't know. You guys use other stuff. I only edit my thumbnails in my photo app or PowerPoint. And the reason I use PowerPoint is not because it's the good software for it. It's because in the professional world, I knew how to use PowerPoint. And when I would look at Canva, I literally said like, oh, this looks a lot like what you can do with PowerPoint. And so to just save time, I would just like throw the picture on a slide and then put whatever word text I wanted on there, and then just take a screenshot. Like literally the latest thumbnail on my channel is done in PowerPoint. That's
beautiful. And 1,913,509 views on your channel. You've reached millions of people at this point in terms of people that have been seeing your content, been exposed to your content, and you're just getting started. and you're already experiencing so much success. I just want to encourage you. What's the best software Tube 1K challenge to use? The one you have access to, the one that's free, the one that's already on your computer, the one you already know how to use. And so, so inspiring, and keeping video editing simple at the start. Ben, did you edit your videos at any point?
Yeah, in the beginning I was.
And what software did you use? Final
Cut Pro is what I used.
How'd you learn it?
YouTube. How to use Final Cut Pro on YouTube. That's what I searched. I love that Jacqueline just is like eliminating all the excuses out there that you have to have all these fancy equipment. And it's really the content, showing up and delivering it and being consistent. I know that even for myself, I think, oh, I got to, get better production, get this fancy camera. And I think that's more of like a selfish thing, that I feel good that I get this cool camera, but really just show up and hit record. The fact that you have an iPhone or whatever it is, a smartphone, that's good enough right there. Get started right there. And then you just get better and you grow, or you just stay with the iPhone. That's fantastic too. I mean, look at Jacqueline. She's crushing it with her phone. So yeah, I used Final Cut Pro in the beginning. Took a lot of time to learn it. Took a lot of time editing. I would spend hours, 4 or 5 hours on a 15-minute video. I did use storyblocks.com as for B-roll. I paid like a membership, I think like $40 a month, where I could just like download certain B-roll that I could put in my video, and I would use Final Cut Pro to put it in there. And then eventually I got an editor. Now I have 2 editors that help me with the YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so version 1 is better than version none. We learned yesterday from Rad. Getting it out there, and you can always update your software, your cameras, your gear along the way. This brings us to number 5, and this is protect your mindset and your energy. And Ben, you had a lot of stuff to share here, and I think that this is kind of like the unthought about productivity tip, that sometimes we think about a calendar, we think about lists, we think we're robots, I think sometimes too. But you talked about how you spend your morning, how you spend your night. You talked about the subconscious mind. And I know you're into so much science-backed insights and human performance and getting more, productivity out of ourselves. And so what are some things that you do to protect your mindset and your energy so that you can put out your best work to serve your mission, your purpose, your YouTube channel, your community, and the difference you want to make in the world?
This is the most important tip right here. So Shauna, I might go a little long, so you just feel free to like reel me in if you need to, but I believe 95% of your success in life, whether it's health, YouTube, relationships, finance, is mindset, and 5% is strategy. I call it the mental 6-pack. And there is a certain time during the day that we really want to protect our time, and I'm going to explain that. But before I do, I want to share how powerful the mind is with 2 short stories. I'm going to keep them short, Sean. So we've all heard of the placebo effect. I think you all have heard about that. Let me know in the chat box if you have. But the placebo effect started in World War II, when the Americans were getting bombed. The soldiers that were getting bombed, they were going to the medical tent. There was a doctor named Dr. Henry Beecher who was attending these soldiers. They were coming in with bullet wounds, arms blown off. It was a nasty situation. And of course, what they did for these soldiers is give them morphine, because it would prevent them from going into shock, stabilize them. They could transfer them to the hospital. They would survive. But what happened is that they ran out of morphine. And one of the nurses, she didn't know what to do. They didn't have any morphine. These soldiers were going into shock. So she put saline solution, which is just salt water, in the needles, and she gave it to Dr. Beecher and told Dr. Beecher she was giving him morphine. So he had the belief that he had morphine in that needle. He told the soldier, I'm giving you morphine. You're going to feel better in a matter of seconds. So he transferred his belief. And what happened? They survived from salt water. And then Harvard studied what happened there in World War II. And that's where the placebo effect came from. And then there's the nocebo effect, where your mind could work against you. Meaning, if you believe you could grow your YouTube channel and you really develop that belief really strong, and I'll talk about the morning time for that, you're right. But if you believe you can't do this and you're not smart enough, or you can't afford the equipment or whatever it is, you're also right, because there's the nocebo effect. And there was a football game in Los Angeles, California, an entire stadium filled with people, and they're watching a football game, and 2 people opposite ends of the stadium start getting really sick. They start projectile vomiting, and they rush to the clinic in the stadium, and the doctor is attending to these 2 people. He wanted to know why they're so sick. Why are they throwing up? And the only thing they had in common was that they both drank soda from the soda machine. So his thought was, there's something wrong with the soda machine. He immediately went on the public address system and told the entire stadium, please do not drink from the soda machine. We believe there are 2 people here that are getting really sick and throwing up from the soda machines. And what happened after he said that? An entire stadium of people started throwing up all over the place. Ambulances were taking them back and forth. And they determined 2 hours later, there was nothing wrong with the soda machine. When they got the news, they stopped being sick. That is the power of the mind. And in the morning and right before bed is when the subconscious mind is most impressionable. So the tip is this: protect your morning. The first 90 minutes of my day is protected. Goals, gratitude, Tony Robbins priming, red light therapy. I mean, mine's a little extensive, but it might be 10 minutes for you. Find a way to not just hop on your phone right away and have a time in the morning where you're reading a book or doing something to set up your day right. And I would also recommend doing the same thing right before bed. As you do that, you'll develop that belief. You'll reprogram that subconscious mind. You'll change those neural pathways, and it's going to mean everything for you, not just for YouTube, but your entire life.
Those stories are so powerful. And I've learned a lot of this stuff from you. I mean, what's actually funny is got my red light panels over here. These are the kind of thing, clicking your affiliate links, which is, this is kind of even if you think full circle, as you start getting into these things, tying it back into, I follow someone like Ben because I want to reach high performance, and I learn about products from him. There's unspeakable products, Ben, that you've taught me about that I've got down in my refrigerator. And people probably are like, what does he mean by that? But I mean, I'll just put it out there. Like, I've learned about suppositories.
That's right.
As a way to get NAD plus and all kinds of stuff. A little TMI probably for everybody watching here, but like the punchline is back on track. Is man, protect your mindset and your energy. And some of the stuff you said, no phones, no social, no distraction, affirmations, getting gratitude. And then you also, before we go to the next tip here, you mentioned every year you do an audit. Can you talk about this one?
Yeah, so I do an audit on my environment, because your environment determines your thoughts determine your actions, and your actions determine your results. So if you want to change your thinking and your actions, it starts with your environment. So I do an audit on the people that are close to me, friends, family, business partners, etc. And I put them into two different buckets. I learned this from Dean Graziosi. He calls them chargers or drainers. So drainers would be obviously people who drain you, people who you have a conversation with, and you're drained. They're gossiping. They're telling you, why do you want to have a YouTube channel? That's silly. That's stupid. It's too late for YouTube. YouTube has been around for too long, and you feel drained. They go on one side of the piece of paper. And then the other side are people like Sean, people like Think Media, people like Jacqueline. Chargers, people who support me, cheer me on. They inspire me. They go on the other side of the paper. And I'm very intentional with spending more time with the chargers and less time with the drainers. So I recommend you do that audit. I do it once every year.
So powerful. And of course, we love our family, and you have different friends at Thanksgiving with whoever, and Christmas. Yeah. But yeah, the way you put it is you spend less time with the drainers and more time with the chargers. And yeah. One of the things we've learned at Think Media, and one of the powers, probably out of everything inside of VRA fam, one of the most powerful things is getting around a community of people that are maybe thinking different than some of the people around you right now, as well as the Facebook group. Like, just imagine keeping this kinds of conversation going, the VRA show monthly, like, with how important psychology is and your mindset is to actually having success on YouTube. That's why just a course is really not enough. Information alone is not enough. It's about getting support and getting surrounded with a community so that you get your mindset right. And so that's definitely one of my favorite tips. And that brings us to, let me recap, and we're going to go to number 6 here. So number 1, use your passive time productively. Number 2, use your calendar and create checklists. Number 3, turn one video into 4 videos. Use batch producing. Number 4, keep your video editing simple at the start. Number 5, protect your mindset and your energy. And number 6, stay flexible. I just saw Victoria talking about in the back end. You might be saying, first 90 minutes of the day, wait till you have kids, what happens? And I'm kind of in that tension point right now, because with the 2.5-year-old and with the 7-month-old, man, before those, I read a book called The Miracle Morning. And And my miracle morning was just a whole Zen experience, uninterrupted. Now, you never know if you get a surprise. The little one wakes up. But I've actually still found that if I'm disciplined, I can get up early enough, or that you just have to get creative and you got to stay flexible. You know, if we become too rigid, like I have to shoot this Saturday, but life comes up, stuff comes up. And so, Jacqueline, you said when we were talking about the pre-planning of all this, make a plan, but stay flexible. Can you break that down?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, I want to say something about number 5, because one of my favorite phrases that kept me going when I was having hard days from VRA was I will until, because that mindset motivation is, I could go on and on about it. In the factories that I worked in was PepsiCo. And what I did for 10 years was culture change. So specifically working to change people's mindsets and processes. So that's all my jam. But when it comes to flexibility, you know, it's really about, and this is why I loved VRA, because it gives you the steps, it gives you the process, it gives you what you should be working on. So when you map out, you use your calendar, you make your checklist, right? What I did is I focused more on what I could control. And what I can control is my behaviors and my actions. What I can't always control is the outcomes. So I might not be able to, if I keep working on my checklist, I might not have finished the video as fast as I thought I was going to. But I control that for 2 hours. I dedicated myself. I worked on my checklist, right? But it even comes down to like, I've got kids, and it's great that I say I'm going to set aside a couple hours to go film. And then they want, you know, someone's melting down, someone scraped their knee, someone, whatever. But even to the point of like, they are aware of YouTube and they want to be in the shot. And so I just try to roll with it. It's like, okay, well, I can't get them out of shot, so I guess we're going to be in shot. The video's not about them, but like, I literally had one, my oldest son is special needs. I could not get him to stop talking. So I literally was just like, okay, you're going to say number 1. And then I would say seeds or something. I don't know, whatever the topic was. And then I would get him to say number 2. And he was so excited.